ain't taking those from nobody.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another post-game live. I am your host, Robbie. I'm with my co-host, Seamus. Ian will be joining us very shortly. I hope so, at least. I believe he is. Celtics drop a tough one on the road in Utah, 137 to 130. Obviously, the Utah Jazz, stating right away, 27 threes for Utah. Now, that mark 27 was one shy of their franchise single game record. Utah shot the lights out for a quick little box score behind the numbers for you. Utah, there's some other guys. Let's go through. Mike Conley, 7 for 7 from downtown. Bogdanovich, 4 for 7. Clarkson tagged along 3. Ingles gave him 3. Mitchell had 6. Royce O'Neal went perfect, 2 for 2. So, a rough loss, but at the sense where, Seamus, the Celtics played a great game of basketball, and really it got overshadowed by two things, I think, and those two things are pretty simple, and I think Celtics fans know it, by a slow start, a pretty stereotypical slow start for the Celtics, and just the Utah Jazz absolutely just knocking down every shot they put up. I'd say rebounding too, but that's not really a big one. Seamus, what is your initial reactions? You can't really be too mad. Tatum played great,
Yeah, I kind of had the same vibe to this game where you can't really be too mad with what happened during the game. I thought the Celtics, they played with the right physicality for most of the game. They played very tough down in the painted area, although they were out-rebounded by 14 rebounds, which got that one in the over-under books now. They were out-rebounded by 14 and won points in the paint by a hefty margin, yet you just look at what happened beyond the arc tonight, and you really, if a team's hitting 27 threes, it's either because they're not defended or they're just hot. And I didn't really think tonight that the Celtics blew their three-point coverages often. I thought there were definitely a couple of possessions where guys went under screens or Utah was setting a down screen and guys just couldn't get over it. And those moments did happen. They took 51 threes tonight. But I thought the Celtics were somewhat solid in defending the perimeter. And it was just a night where Utah was on. And really, so was Boston. It was a high-scoring affair that the Celtics just could not pull out because they just didn't have the firepower near the end of the game. A 28-17 run, I believe, by the Jazz in the game. So the Celtics can't be too mad, but this kind of a stereotypical loss, as you say, for the Celtics.
For sure. And you look at the Celtics defense, you want to talk about defense? I thought they played a solid defensive night, actually, although like I said, they put up 137 points, and they were hitting every shot they took. But the Celtics did force 19 turnovers, which is a lot of turnovers to force. The Celtics played good defensively. And Ian, now, I said this to start, kind of at the end of November, entering this December trip, that obviously with that 2-5 start, these games are going to sting a little bit more than they really should because, what we want to see is the Celtics compete in a game like this, and they did just that. Obviously, Celtics go to 12-11. Do you think Celtics fans should not overreact to this loss and actually take it as a positive, maybe?
Ah, man. First off, I want to talk about the game itself. I don't know how they did it, but how the hell did the Jazz hit 27 threes? Like, that's just incredible. I was watching the game with my live stream, and, like, all of us were thinking the same thing. I was just, like, floored. I was just like, how are they hitting all of these shots? Like, it was crazy, and like some of them were because the Celtics weren't playing great defense, and there was a few of them, but most of them were all just like great defended. Like, pretty much they were right there, and the Jazz just hit all of them. Like, anytime the Jazz put up a three, I thought it was going in. Like, it was insane. But I will say, as bad as this loss hurts, and trust me, this loss stings a little bit. It stung, especially at the end of the game. But there is something positive we can take away. Our offense finally woke up. Like, for the first time since, like, I don't know, the Charlotte game maybe. Like, the offense actually looked good. Like, granted, there were times where they had some lapses, and especially down the stretch, which we can get into a little later, and I have something I want to say about that, but I'll wait for a little bit for that. But the Celtics as themselves offensively looked really good tonight. And as a Celtics fan, should we take this loss to heart? Yes and no. Yes, for the fact that we're still down in the division. We still lost the game. But no, in the sense of the offense actually looked it looked okay for the first time in a while.
Yeah, and you know, we Celtics fans are coming into this Jazz game. Every year we play Utah, it's a tough game to begin with, especially when they're on the road. I believe Celtics 1-5 against Utah in the past. Now 1-6 in the past 3 years. So you know, Utah has played us very, very well. I mean, every single year. So you know, Celtics played a great game. I'm looking now at the 4 games left in this road trip. This makes tomorrow night very, very big. You know, must-win game tomorrow night. I do think that the Celtics, first of all, one thing, did not fold. They continue to impress me with their just energy and their engagement. I think that's a very big positive. However, I think we have 3 very winnable games coming up that are, you know, must-win games now. I think we have a great opportunity to snag 3. Portland without Dame, second night of a back-to-back. Brown, I hope, is sitting. Get him healthy for that Lakers game, maybe. Seamus, what do you think about that on this next 4 games? How you feeling?
You know, I would say the same thing, and we talked about this the other day on the post-game show, where these next 3 games, these are your 3 most winnable games during this West Coast road trip. Now, I said the ideal record would be about 3-2, and the 2 games I said we'd lose, the Jazz and Suns game. Yeah. And, well, we took care of the first one. We lost the Jazz game, but now we have to respond in these next 3. We have the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Blazers as well as tomorrow night. So those 3 games you have to capitalize on. The Clippers, they're shorthanded. They're not, you know, they're not a scary team this year to me that much. I mean, Paul George always gives us trouble, but, you know, I just don't believe in the Clippers this year. And then you look at the Lakers. LeBron will now play in that game. That's a different dynamic from what we talked about the other night. So we have to come to play. That's always going to be a big game in Los Angeles, yet still a very winnable game because of who the Lakers are as a team. And, of course, tomorrow night, no Damian Lillard as well, and that's a winnable game. The Blazers, when they don't have their top star, they're not the same team. When they don't have any of their rotational players, they're not the same team. So Blazers tomorrow night, Lakers on Tuesday, and I believe the Clippers on Wednesday. Those are 3 very winnable games before we go and take on the Suns, I believe, next Saturday or Friday. I might be mixing up the days on that one.
Yeah, extremely winnable game. Right now, quick little update, actually. Clippers beating the Lakers by 8 points, end of the third quarter. But yeah, I don't think there's too much to complain about. Something I do want to complain about, though, is that slow start for the Celtics kind of came out with again. And the reason why it's so frustrating is because I felt like, so you look at the box score here, and Boston beat Utah by 10 in the second, tied the third, and lost by 4 in the fourth. So you think, like, even if you just start the first quarter down 3, we win this game. And that's it'd be tied actually. But so, you know, it's very frustrating because it is continuing to happen, and the Celtics looked great right after the first quarter. They kind of flipped on their switch, but at the same time, the slow starts, you know, they're starting to kind of, the games like this, they sting just a little bit more because extremely winnable game. If you think you don't have to start out amazing or perfect, but you have to keep yourself in the game in that first quarter if you're not going to be a great first quarter team. And I do think that hurt the Celtics big time in this game. And it does, like I said, it's a rough loss, but at the same time, you can't be too mad. I mean, the Utah was hitting 27 threes. I think tomorrow night you have to win. And I think tomorrow night is Jason Tatum. You know, you got to go in there and you can keep it up. 37 from Tatum tonight. I mean, what do we think about Tatum?
Tatum, okay, I think I have one problem with Tatum is that when the game starts, at least that's what I've noticed over the last few games, he's not driving to the basket. And I know he's trying to get his shot early and he's trying to get into the flow, into the offense. But, man, Tatum, like, he is so good when he drives to the basket. Like,
when he drives strong to the basket.
When he drives strong to the basket, man, like, there is not another person in the NBA that does it better than Tatum. And I do not feel bad about saying that. It's just he doesn't. I don't know what it is about him, and like, and I'm not complaining about Tatum by any means. I said this in the beginning of the at the end of the pregame show. You know, are we expecting a hell of a lot out of Tatum? Yes, we are. You know, can we be extremely mad about it? No, we can't. It's just like, oh, he had such a great game, and like, especially down the stretch too. And then there was that one shot in the fourth quarter where he took a three and he missed it, and it led to Donovan Mitchell going on like an 8-0 run by himself. Like,
Yeah, against Gobert.
it was tough, man.
So-
it was rough. It was rough.
I think this was the actual picture perfect Jason Tatum performance that I'm looking for. 37 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He was second in assists behind Horford, who had 9. Phenomenal game out of Horford. He did shoot poor from 3 again. You ought to. I mean, he shot 2 for 11. I mean, if he's shooting even at a 35% clip, he's scoring right around 50. I mean, yeah. I mean, he makes 4 more, which is 5 of 11, right around 40%. He's putting up. Yes, he's putting up 45. So I do think Tatum played a great game, though. I think Schroeder played great. Everyone had a good game. It just got overshadowed by Utah's, incredible three-point shooting. I do think, slow start. We got to work on that. But so coming into Portland here, I think there's a couple things we have to do. I think this is a great opportunity for the Celtics to get going right off the bat. And I think it's extremely important. I need to see it against Portland, because if I don't see it against Portland, I'm going to start to get worried, because it's not sustainable for 82 games to keep digging yourselves into these holes right off the bat. And I think it starts with Portland, because Portland, like I said, no Dame. CJ, right now you only got to worry about CJ McCollum. I could totally see the Celtics losing this game because it's so typical for that to happen. So I need to see the Celtics get out strong and get up by 10 in the first quarter. Can we do that? That's what I want.
I mean, it could happen against this Blazers team without Damian Lillard. Theoretically, it could happen. But even, just looking at these games in their entirety, it would be great if the Celtics could just break even in the first quarter. And most of the time they don't. And tonight, obviously, what was the score after the first? It was 38-24, I believe, or 38-25, one of those two scores. And to give up 38 points in the first quarter right off the bat, I mean, look, the Jazz hit 27 threes tonight out of 51. You don't think that their hot start from the field, the hot start that we allowed from the field, contributed to that over the game? They got their rhythm early. They got their feet wet very quickly into the game. Now, that persists throughout the game, and that's exactly what happened tonight. The Celtics definitely have to do a better job of starting games early, because we've sat here so many times and talked about their slow starts, and it doesn't necessarily seem like it's improving that greatly. And even the nights where we go, okay, well, we had a solid start right there, it's one of those break-even nights, and more of those nights are wanted, I would say. However, you have to eventually get to a point where if you want to compete, you have to start winning first quarters consistently over opponents you should win them over. Tomorrow night, I think you're right. Against this Blazers team, no Damian Lillard, that's a first quarter you should probably win against that team.
For sure. And I think a problem with that, I could be wrong. I mean, that starting 5, that starts when everyone's healthy. However, tonight Brown wasn't in, it was Schroeder. I do think that there is a chance that double big lineup we are running is giving us some problems in starting out the gate. I think there is you see some spacing issues, I think, between sometimes Horford doesn't know to play in and out because Rob kind of always needs to be in, or else he's kind of useless offensively unless it's a high ball screen and roll. So I do think that's something Udoka should look at. I know he was saying, before that he didn't want to really touch it. He really wanted to see one starting lineup go all year. However, personally, I would love to see Richardson kind of slide into that 2-guard starting spot, move Tatum down to the 4, and maybe I don't know. I'd send Horford to the bench and have Horford and Schroeder come off the bench. And I think Tatum plays a little bit more fluid as the 4. I think it gives him. I think he's more comfortable there from what I've seen. So I don't know what you guys think about that. I mean, even tonight, you did not see a lot of Horford or Williams on the court at all past the first quarter. And guess what? Tatum has 37. So I think that readjusting that starting lineup, moving either Richardson or Schroeder, whoever it may be, and taking one of those bigs out is the key to the Celtics kind of getting off to a better start.
Yeah, I really don't know what it is. I mean, I honestly feel like, and I mean, Josh Richardson has played really well off the bench, and I don't really know if I want to have him starting. I think if anyone's going to start, I think I want Grant Williams starting. And Grant Williams has played super well when he started and this season so far. And I mean, it's tough because I kind of agree. I don't think this double big lineup is working to start the game. It's really not. And I mean, they've kind of said it on the Celtics broadcast kind of throughout the season how like it really doesn't work a lot of the time.
Yeah,
And I kind of liked when we
start.
had exactly. I liked when we had like one of the two of Horford or Williams in the game at a time. Although I feel like Williams should have played a little more tonight, but that's besides the point. At the same time, I also think that we need to talk about the end of game situations. The Celtics have been in a lot of end of game situations where they've had a chance to win, and they have absolutely been abysmal in all of them, it feels like.
I don't think they were abysmal tonight, though. I think that the Jazz Celtics, were up 4, I want to say, with right around 3 minutes. Jazz went on a 10-2 run, down to like 124. And yeah, I think it was just Donovan Mitchell being great. I do agree Celtics this season have not been good down the stretch by any means. But I think tonight it was just an asterisk next to tonight in that fourth quarter because, I mean, when Donovan Mitchell was just – I can't even.
All right. Well, like, okay, so I do want. I disagree in one way. I don't think it's really an asterisk, although, yes, everyone was shooting amazing for the Jazz. I still feel like it's a really big issue for the Celtics. Like, I'm really not impressed with Ime Udoka down the stretch right now. And I feel like it's a bigger issue because let's look at that Spurs game. Are you going to say it was an asterisk because DeJounte Murray was insane?
Well, no, but
I mean, it's just like
if you go back to that Spurs game, the Celtics actually didn't play like well throughout the entire course of that fourth quarter. They were up. Well, I want to
like
say
they had an 8-point lead at 3:21 left.
So
and
you look at the game. Basketball is 100% a game of runs. It's how it operates, and I think if you look at tonight's game, that the Celtics just fell victim of. I mean, you could say the same thing. Utah was up 6. Celtics came crawling back, put it at 4. Then Utah comes back, they get the lead to 4. Celtics come back and they tie the game, and I want to say they come down and they knock down a couple threes. So it's like I agree. Don't get me wrong. I will 100% say that the Boston Celtics down the stretch have not been good this year. I think they've looked a little better tonight. I think they looked better. I agree, though. I think the Celtics need to. I think they kind of go into a frenzy offensively, and I think they struggle to get buckets. With the key to that, personally, I'd say get the ball to Tatum, let him kind of create offensively. Seamus, now I do want to get your opinion on the starting 5 because I think that's something we should really be hitting on here because I think it's a real problem for the Celtics.
Yeah, I think the starting 5 will eventually change if we continue to see this trend with the team where they go off to these slow starts, dig themselves a hole early, and they're really at the beginning of games. They look lethargic most of the time is what I take away from the beginning of games. Their offense doesn't look like it's flowing whatsoever, and that double big lineup, it definitely looks wonky, and I'm only really a supporter of the double big lineup in certain circumstances, right? And I think, just rolling out a double big lineup every single night because they're your 5 best guys, that's not exactly the strategy to win games early. It's not just to throw out your 5 best guys and have 2 of them be centers and just start the game that way. And I think something needs to change over time. And my thought is I think they'll start Al at the 5. I think Ime likes Al personally playing. Now, obviously, it matters on the matchup, and all depends on the matchup. But I think Ime will favor Al in that sense, and Al is usually more reliable at the beginning of games. But there's another aspect with Robert Williams as well. Brings high energy to games, and he's arguably the better center at times. And I think it all depends on matchup, but also you have to think about this too with those two guys. Well, or with the lineup, I should say. Who are you going to bring in, right? And there's multiple candidates you can bring in. There's Josh Richardson, as you said. There's Dennis Schroeder, as we've discussed multiple times as well. And, other guys, Grant Williams, you said as well. And I just wonder, what the insert is. I like Grant Williams in that starting lineup. He's looked tremendous.
I like Grant too.
Yeah, and Josh Richardson's good too, but I still love him off the bench. He almost reminds me of like a 2015-16 Smart in that respect. Maybe not as good of a ball handler. However, he reminds me of Smart in terms of the energy he brings off the bench to the club. And, I think the Celtics, they have a somewhat good problem on their hand. I know, we've started games lightly and we really haven't come out firing on all cylinders. However, they have the pieces to go deep and change up the lineup and still feel comfortable about the depth they have. And that's a pretty good problem to have at the end of the day, rather than, you're looking at last year. If you're trying to change the starting lineup, who are you adding in? You're adding in Jimmy Ojale, whoever. And that's not the problem this year. It's really just who are we matching together? And that's a better problem to have.
Yeah. The more I think about it, I do really like, Grant starting. I think Grant would actually be a good fit. I think Grant's actually good thing about Grant is he's kind of matchup friendly and he kind of can really play against a lot of different matchups. He's a kind of a smaller yet bigger sized guy. He's a thick boy, and 6'6", right? Yeah, you know what I mean. But so and he can shoot the ball well. Space is great. Personally, I'd start Robert Williams unless you're going up against a Rudy Gobert, because I think Al did a great job pulling Gobert out. I think in that matchup situation, or maybe even Philly, I'd start Al. Maybe even still Philly, I'd start them both because Tobias isn't really too much of a problem. You can kind of throw the other one on him. But I do think that's something that the Celtics really need to do pretty soon too. I think the lineup that completely agree throwing your best 5 players out there isn't going to cut it anymore, especially others in starting. And if Udoka doesn't make a change, I think that's poor coaching. I hate to say it and call him out like that, but I think that's what I'm putting my finger on, because there's been a couple games now, I'd say right around 5 or 6. I could name the Dallas game, I can name this game, and I can name, what's another one? Maybe 2, but where we started off really slow, we climbed back, and we just can't.
More than
San Antonio.
San Antonio. We could probably name every game.
Yeah,
outside of maybe like 5.
Except that Philly game last night or the other night, Wednesday. I feel like it feels like every game they've had trouble. Yeah. And maybe opening night they didn't have trouble, but it's tough, man.
So opening night we led after 1 actually. So
I know. So I said outside of opening night and like
opening
couple
night was
other
the
games.
ending. We couldn't finish. Opening night was we couldn't finish. But no, I completely agree. Yeah. I think that the Celtics need to buckle down and kind of adjust that. I think if you're going in at the end of the first quarter from here on out and you're tied up, I think the Celtics are in a perfect situation because they play amazing basketball from quarters 2 and 3. They are just amazing. If the Celtics played quarters 2 and 3 basketball all 4 quarters, they would maybe be a top 3 team in the league right now, because I mean, I want to know what their net rating is, Seamus. If you can get that, I know you're the stats guy here. I mean, it really is. Their second and third quarter net rating has to be super, super high.
Yeah,
their second and third quarter net rating. All right.
Yeah,
I got it.
Man,
also,
it's
I
rough.
want to say this: in the first, all the way up to the Dallas game, I would say that outside of the Heat game and the Bulls game, if I'm not mistaken, we pretty much started every game rough. Outside of the Bulls game, the Heat game, and the Knicks game, which those are 3 opponents that, hey, we came to play against the Heat, Bulls, and Knicks. Those are opponents you should come to play against. So positive, I guess, right there. Finding the Celtics third quarter and second quarter net rating real quick for you here.
And while you do that, I do want to say something really quick. And I said it to start, but I'm going to say it again because I think this is actually really important now. If you go down, start of the season, and you were to circle 10 games that you thought the Celtics were going to guaranteed lose, this would be one of them. And I say that because Utah on the road, I'd say that one. I'd say Brooklyn, two out of the 4 Brooklyns. I'd say 2 out of the 4 Milwaukee games. And I'd say on the road at Phoenix. That's right around, 7, 8 games that you could circle and say, this is a game I expect to lose. Right? I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I came in with the mindset the Celtics are going to lose. I thought they could win. But my point is that the reason why this hurts more is because of the slow start. And I think this loss is acceptable to me personally. That's the way I look at it. Celtics still over 500, right? They got 3 very winnable games, right? So it's okay. You lost this one. Go get the next 3. If you win those next 3, guess what? Celtics fans, we're up to 4 games over 500 with a game against Phoenix. Say we drop a game against Phoenix on the road. Very reasonable. That's a reasonable game to lose. If you keep it close like we did tonight, reasonable game to lose. And then guess what? You go back, you get 3 more. And I think that's the key to the Celtics kind of jumping up in the standings.
Okay,
I don't know.
so
I'm
here we
kind of.
go.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Ian. Go ahead, Ian.
No, you're good. You got it.
No. You go first because I still have one more stat to look up here.
All right. So I don't know. It's just like it's coming to like the point of the season, and like I mean, it's technically still early, but it's like, how many more can we afford to like really like lose? Like in this fashion, it kind of feels like.
Well, it's an 82 game
I don't
season,
know.
so it's going to happen.
No, I know.
You're gonna
There's like
lose
plenty.
games.
There's plenty of time, and I know you're gonna lose games, but like I don't know. It just feels like. It still
guys
feels
are-
like we're just hovering.
No, yes, it does. But my point is here is that the Celtics, right? This is the Celtics. I've done it recently. They have done a great job relatively winning games they're supposed to win. They should have beat the Spurs, and they should have beat, I'd say, Cleveland were up by 19. Those are 2 games that they should have won. If they win those 2 games, Celtics currently would be sitting at a 14-9 record. Yeah, 14-9 record. 5 games over 500, they'd be sitting at the 3 spot. So that's my point.
And here we go. I have the net ratings here in front of me. You guys are going to be just beside yourself, possibly. In the second quarter, the Boston Celtics have a net rating of 10.1, which is 5th in the NBA behind the Brooklyn Nets, Los Angeles Clippers, who I kind of shit on earlier. Sorry, Clips. The Milwaukee Bucks, and the Phoenix Suns.
Yep,
So
that's
pretty
my
good
point.
company right there for the Celtics. And then in the third quarter, it just gets even better. In the third quarter, they have an 11.5
Yes.
net rating. That is 3rd in the NBA behind the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have proven to be pretty damn good as well this year. So the Celtics in quarters 2 and 3, so the best team in the NBA, basically. Essentially, you're top 5. You're the only team that's both top 5 in second quarter and third quarter net rating. That's it. It's the
And
Celtics.
it goes with finding the lineup, right? And I think the Celtics players touched on this. It's about playing 48. That's my point. Is that's how good the Celtics can be. They've shown it almost every single night. They've shown it just in those 2 quarters. So it's, if I'm Udoka, it's okay. What can I do now? What am I doing in those 2 quarters that I can do in the first and the fourth? And I think that is finding a new starting lineup. And down the stretch, Ian made a great point. Offensively, they're just super just inconsistent and hesitant, and they let the Jazz kind of really. This is a game they had the lead with 3 minutes left. You know, you should have. It's the game you win. In San Antonio, you're up by 8, 3 minutes left. That's a game you got to win. No excuses there. So I think Celtics, if they can figure that out, I don't think it's hard to figure that out. It's a good problem to have, in my opinion. When you got all these guys, you got to mix and match lineups. I think the Celtics could be in a good spot.
Well, I have more stats to pull out here, and
is it going to be the fourth quarter?
It's going to be first and fourth quarter. Got to complete all the quarters.
Yeah,
the first quarter, in the first quarter, the Celtics, the Boston Celtics, have a net rating. They pretty much cancel out their second quarter net rating with this, a minus 10.1. 26th in the NBA. And in the fourth quarter, it gets even better, as it did for the other stats.
We're probably all-time bad.
In the fourth quarter, they are a minus 11.328 in the NBA, which pretty much cancels out their third quarter.
And that's my point.
And that's why this team is so frustrating to watch.
Yes, it's
and
because
that is why we are 12 and 11.
And
right there.
I got a question for you guys. I have a question because I think I'm 100%. I said 20 games in, I'd make my mark where this team's going. I'm not going to do that yet. However, I'm going to set in stone that this team is a much better basketball team than last year's team. Right? No question about it. I do think Celtics need a little bit more shooting. That's a different conversation. However, I do think this is an extremely fixable problem, and I think it might take a little bit, and we may finish 6 or 5 or 4 right around there. The top 3 might be tough. I mean, we're still only 4 games back from it, 2 games from third. But I think that the Celtics actually basketball team, they're just still managing this whole new coach in new role key players, and I think that's tough.
I don't know. I really want to see the Celtics out of the play-in. Like, I mean, we've been hovering around this 9 seed like all season, and like, it's just kind of like, I want it to, and like, I mean, I'm not trying to shit on the Celtics as much as I feel like I am, but it's just like you have so much potential. Like, this team is so good when they're on. You've seen it in their net ratings in the second and third quarter. This team is so talented, have so many chances to be such a much better team, and it's just heartbreaking at the fact that right now we're 12 and 11 because we could easily be up the top 3 in the East right now. It's just kind of frustrating.
For sure,
and we could still be at the top of the East near the end of the season if we put together a pretty comparable run here in December and January. We've mentioned it before on this broadcast. January lightens up a little bit for us, and if we can get past this December, that's why this December stretch is so important, and it's going to be telling on where the Celtics go in the future, because if you just crap out this whole December and have a losing record or have a 500 record and look back and go, okay, well, what did we really accomplish? It's going to be a long road ahead to try and get to the top 3 seed or a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, considering the competitiveness that lies within the Eastern Conference this year. And you look at it too, it's going to raise questions, I said this before, about whether or not this team is going to be buyers or sellers come trade deadline. Say they do have a good record come trade deadline, say they're near the top 4 in the East and feel as if they can compete with this roster. Maybe they're buyers. Maybe they go and try to package a young guy or two and go get somebody that'll help you in the playoffs. Or, you have Wancho sitting there making $6 million too. And Cantor on the bench as well that is used sometimes not used. And he's not going to play in the playoffs. We all kind of know that at this point. And it's going to be, is this team going to sell guys like Dennis Schroeder and, Wancho and, whoever else is on the roster? Well, he wouldn't really sell Wancho. He'd be, more of a try and get something back for him piece. Yeah. Or are you going to be buyers and try to improve this roster? And I think, this December will tell a lot, because this next offseason, who's on the books? It's going to be Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Marcus Smart, and Josh Richardson is going to be on an expiring deal.
Williams.
And Robert Williams as well. He just got the extension. And I'm sure there's probably a couple of other players, but their salaries are very minuscule. This summer is going to be a huge summer for the Celtics, despite what happens this season. There's going to be a lot of cap space there that can capitalize on the roster with. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to trade for certain guys, because I think this season there's not going to be a power shift in the NBA after the season, but there's always stars who become available, and there's going to be a question at the end of the season. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, do they fit together? And this is also another one of those stretches where we're just not getting the data of that, and that's why it's still frustrating to watch this team as they're 500, because they're still not all here yet either, and that's something fans have to keep in mind. But regardless, this December is going to be long. I know I went on a whole spiel about it, but this December is going to be long, tough, hard for the Celtics, and they just have to fight through. And tonight, I would say it's an okay stepping stone towards that. 137 is not great to give up. However, you scored 130. You were competitive after going down double digits early, and you responded. So same problems with the Celtics, but at least they're showing some sort of progression. And again, got to see everybody healthy too.
For sure. First 2 games, they've shown no implications to me that this December is going to be rough. I think they've actually showed 2 great games of competing and staying in the game against 2 very solid NBA teams. However, we are getting late, so do you guys want to do over under? I don't know if you did it before we close out here.
Yes.
So
Yeah, let's do over under here.
we're getting pretty late here.
I think I go 4-0? Did I go 4-0, Ian?
Let's see. So the first question was, who gets more rebounds as a duo, Horford and Robert Williams or Whiteside and Gobert? I think it was Gobert and Whiteside that won that one.
Yeah, they did.
Gobert had 12, Whiteside had 2, so that's 14. Robert Williams had 5, Al Horford had 6, so close. But
it was 2 rebounds away from each other in the fourth quarter there too.
Facts. So Seamus won that one. We said over under Dennis Schroeder 13 points. We both went over that one pretty good, so we both got a point there.
That's a lock. I'd hammer that one.
We said outscoring. We said Jason Tatum or Donovan Mitchell, and I think we both said Tatum. So
yeah, even though we made the argument for Mitchell, we said Tatum.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good one. And then most assists as a team, we did Utah. We said Utah or the Celtics. Celtics ended with 23 assists. Utah ended with 26. Seamus, you took that one. Seamus goes 4-0 tonight. Big night. I went 2 of 4.
With every win,
it was pretty good.
It comes a loss because earlier today, I probably took one of the biggest L's tonight. I posted that defensive rating post and I went, I kind of like the under for this game tonight.
I also was saying under. This Jazz were the 6th best defensive rating. Celtics were the 5th. I was completely expecting a defensive battle.
And it was the complete opposite. It was high.
The complete opposite, for sure.
I will say, one thing I want to say about this upcoming month, if every game is going to be like the last couple games, at least even if the Celtics lose, we're going to have an entertaining month of basketball to watch at least, because the last 2 games have been pretty entertaining. Like, I was having a lot of fun watching that Jazz and Celtics game, especially in the third quarter where they went like 8 straight possessions, like back and forth between both teams that were scoring. And I don't know, it was just overall a fun game to watch. And if you guys watched that game, which I don't know if you would have since Philly and Atlanta and the Warriors and Suns were on ESPN, which I watched the end of that Philly game, which was crazy. But, I mean, at least we're in for an entertaining month of basketball.
For sure. Celtics lose to the Utah Jazz 137-130. If you're not following us on social media, guys, go do that. All of our personals will be in the description down below. We appreciate your support. We will be tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow night. Is the game at 10, I want to say? So the game is at 10.
9:30
pregame show. We will be doing a post-game show. We're going to grind it out. We appreciate all the support you guys have been showing, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night for